Hey everyone, welcome to MuseThemes.com. This is Ashton Bingham. Today we're taking a look at our Photo Zoom widget. It's a cool way to make your images on your site much more interactive by enabling this zoom effect when I roll my mouse over the image space. I'm able to control the positioning of the zoom simply by moving my mouse around. And what's great is we're seeing a nice, crisp, high-resolution version of this image, not a pixelated, manufactured zoom of a smaller image. We also have customization in the settings panel to make this interactive with a click and drag as opposed to a hover, and with a small setup it can accommodate any image dimensions. So let's jump into Muse and take a look at how this is done. From our library, we're going to drag the widget out onto the page, and we're just going to get this empty placeholder box showing for now until we load in an image. Now by default, this widget comes sized as a square, so we're just going to leave it as is for now. We don't want to adjust the actual sizing of the widget until we know the dimensions of the image that we're going to be working with. But we'll get into that in a moment. For now, let's jump into the settings panel. Starting with our working layout. Now by default, this widget comes set to work with a desktop view, which is what it was originally intended for, especially if you're going to be working with a hover functionality. But you can have alternate versions of this for tablet and phone layouts as well if your site calls for it. Next option is to add our image. So we're going to click, and we're prompted with our Finder window. Now I've prepared an image here of a glass of wine taken from our Barrel Select theme, and I've got them here at two different dimensions. Now since our widget is sized to a square, I'm going to pick the square one for now, and we'll cover the varying dimensions in a moment. So we'll select the square and click Open. There. Now we're already getting a preview of the image here in Muse, but we'll of course need to give this a browser preview to see it in action. And there we go. We get our image displayed nicely, and a rollover of the mouse gives us a nice high-res zoomed view of said image. Now let's jump back to Muse. It's important to note how this widget is working as far as dimensions are concerned. The widget is designed to maintain a high-resolution view of whatever image it's given, so it's only designed to zoom an image to a max size of whatever its pixel dimensions are. Now let me show you what I mean. Right now you can see the widget is set to a size of 400 by 400 pixels, and this is the exact size that it appears as on the page before rolling my mouse over. Now I'm going to switch over to Photoshop really quick, just so we can look a little closer at the specs of the actual image itself. Now I have my square image loaded in here, and I'm going to click Image and go to Image Size, and we'll make sure we're viewing it in pixels. Now we can see the image has an original size of 800 by 800 pixels. It's still square, but it's twice as big as the widget, meaning the widget has an ability to zoom the image up to twice the size that it's originally loaded in. Now just to show you the difference, I'm going to size the image down to 450 by 450. And click OK. Much smaller now. I'll go ahead and save a new copy of the image. And we'll name it Wine Square Small. And we'll click OK. Now let's head back to Muse. I'm going to keep the widget sizing the exact same, but I'm now going to load in our much smaller image. And we'll click OK. Now everything looks the same, but if we preview it in a browser, and we roll our mouse over, we can see a much more subtle zoom effect. And that's because the widget will only zoom it to the extent of its actual pixel dimensions, because any more would make it appear blurry. So if you're experimenting with the widget and you're finding that your image isn't zooming as much as you'd like, or maybe even not at all, it means that either you need a larger image or you need to size down your widget. Now one last thing I want to note. Let's jump back over to Muse. And I'm going to load in another image, but this time I'm going to take our wide version. There we go. Okay, so now it doesn't look quite right, and the reason is because we need our widget to match the same dimension ratio of the image. Not size of the image, but just the ratio of dimensions, meaning that we need to make our widget wider. And we can use Photoshop to find out exactly how much wider. Let's jump over, and I'll pull up our wide image. And I'm going to open up image size once again. Now we can see our wide image has dimensions of 1400 by 800, obviously much larger than our 400 by 400 widget. Now we don't want to size the widget up this large, we just want the ratio to match. And what we can do, since we know that our widget is 400 by 400, I'm going to make sure our dimensions here are linked, as we can see by this link icon here. And I'm just going to type 400 in the width box. And as I do that, you can see our height is automatically changed to 229. Same ratio, just smaller size. Alternatively, we could put 400 in the height box, and we get a width of 700. Either option is the exact same dimension ratio. So let's use this one, 700 by 400. So we're going to jump back over to Muse, and I'm going to change our widget width to 700. And we'll recenter it. There. And we can already see it looks back to normal, but we'll go ahead and give it a quick browser preview. And everything is functioning as it should be. Now back in that settings panel really quick, we do have two more options here. Zoom control allows you to select if the zoom is prompted by a rollover, by a grab and drag, or by a click. And lastly here you can enter the alternate text for the image, which is usually used for SEO purposes. So thanks again for watching, and if you run into any issues, don't hesitate to hit us up in support. Thanks.